Welcome on Hyvolution TV. We're going to discuss today the European hydrogen backbone, a pipeline network all across Europe. My two guests today, Marie-Claire Aoun, hello. You're head of Gas for Climate and also working for Terega company, French company, as a director of prospective and institutional relations. And Anthony Mazenga, you're head of hydrogen business development at GRT Gaz. Thank you for joining us today. Maybe a few words to introduce what is Gas for Climate, Marie-Claire.
Yes, sure. Gas for Climate, it is an initiative which was created in 2017 by 11 TSOs, so gas transmission system operators, among them GRT Gaz and Terega, and also two renewable gas associations. And we have really worked since 2017 on the importance of relying on the existing gas infrastructure in order to support energy transition and in order to rely on the flexibility that is existing today in the gas infrastructure. With Gas for Climate, we have initiated the European Hydrogen Backbone Initiative in 2020, and really based on this cooperation between different countries in Europe and on the fact that we have existing gas network that can be transformed tomorrow to transport hydrogen. And so we have presented this vision. It's a vision, it's not an investment plan, it's a vision where we have 60% of the European network of hydrogen tomorrow can be really relying on the existing gas network, and 40% of new pipelines at a very, very affordable cost. We will probably talk about it later.
So the kickoff was 3 years ago. It just began like this, and then it inflated.
Absolutely.
A huge network now.
We started with a network initially around 2030 of 11,000 kilometers in 2030. Today we are presenting a vision with a network around 28,000 of kilometers in 2030. And this was also related to the acceleration that we need to do given the current context and given the need to accelerate further in the development of alternative sources to reduce our dependency on Russian gas.
Anthony, for GRT Gaz, have you been surprised by the evolution of the project?
I think that the European hydrogen backbone is, in fact, in a dynamic to answer also to the market. It's a vision of TSO, of course, but clearly it is also a vision at the service of the player of the market and of the EU strategy. And of course, Repower EU is pushing us to be more dynamic and to foster, in fact, this vision and to traduce this vision, to translate this vision into real investment. So that's the big challenge we will have to deal with in the coming years.
Of course, the Ukraine crisis is going to be an accelerator for this backbone, I guess.
Yes, as I said, it is. We hope that it will be an accelerator. In any case, we need to accelerate if we want to meet our objectives, our climate objective. Also, if we want to reduce the share that we import today from on fossil fuels and also on Russian gas. And as you know, the European Commission published its Repower EU plan, where the objective is to replace around the equivalent of 50 BCM of natural gas by hydrogen in 2030. So this is a very significant objective, and infrastructure, as Anthony was saying, are there to support this development. Why? Because we can link quickly major consuming areas in Europe with major producing areas. And for that, we need to transport hydrogen. And so this is really the pillar of the European hydrogen backbone, to link those areas and to gain progressively in competitiveness and support massification and realize economies of scale rapidly.
And decisions have to be taken now. We can't wait anymore.
Yeah, clearly the question is now, because in terms of infrastructure, we are always in a very long duration in terms of investment. If we want to have networks operational by 2030, 2030 can appear quite long term for some industry, but in fact for the infrastructure, it's really tomorrow, and we need to make the decision now. But as you say, the war in Ukraine is pushing us, in fact, to make such decisions. and maybe to start with infrastructure dedicated to gas first, because we need to diversify gas supply on a very short run, but having in mind that this kind of investment need to be repurposed into hydrogen quite quickly in order to be at the rendezvous of the hydrogen market by 2030, 2035.
The good news is we won't rely on only one provider for whole Europe, but on several ones.
Yes, this is clearly good news, is that first we have a potential, a significant potential of European production of hydrogen in France, of course, in South Europe, in the northern part of Europe, and we are studying today diverse corridors, hydrogen corridors in Europe to support this supply. So we have huge potential of domestic resources in Europe, but also we can also cooperate with our neighbors. We are talking with North African neighbors and maybe someday coming from much far away. But clearly the idea is to say that hydrogen will be a lot a support of our energy sovereignty because we have the resources in Europe. And of course, some areas are more competitive than others, and this is why it is also important to link those areas. And again, the hydrogen backbone is, yes, it is in line with this vision.
Yes, there was an initial plan with Ukraine, but we can understand now that it won't work for any time. But it can be Morocco, it can be other countries, as you said. Maybe Spain to start?
Yes, I think initially we are really working and trying to work at a European level as an initial step. Yes, indeed with Spain, but also with Italy. Also there is a corridor in the Nordics from the North Sea, also from the Eastern European countries. So hydrogen is really, the idea is really to develop all the areas around Europe with Spain, where we have a huge potential for competitive hydrogen. And this is interesting also for France, also for Germany, and so this is one of the corridors we are working on within the European hydrogen backbone to export from Spain, hydrogen coming from Spain through France and then also through Germany. Yes, so this is one idea, and one day, if indeed we can also cooperate with the extra European countries such as Morocco, as you mentioned, such as Ukraine. There was a MOU which was signed. Of course, it will take a little bit of time given the current situation, but yes, the idea is to see what we can do, and of course to diversify all those supply corridors and not to rely, of course, on one source.
Just in order to be clear, is it a new network from scratch, or do we rely on an existing backbone for gas that can be converted in a hydrogen network?
In fact, it will be both, because in some situations we have the opportunity, in fact, to release some gas assets because the gas market will slow down due to energy efficiency. So at some point we have, for example, double pipes. One pipe can be specialized in gas and the other one can be repurposed to offer transmission capacity to the hydrogen market. But in some situations we don't have this kind of opportunity, so we will consider to invest in new pipelines dedicated to hydrogen. And it's a mix of new and repurposed assets that can bring this European hydrogen backbone with very, in fact, low investment, with very interesting economics for the hydrogen market.
At the moment, there was speculations about blending hydrogen with natural gas, but you mean a dedicated 100% network for hydrogen? That's it?
Yes, yes, indeed. We initially worked on this blending. Today, we all agree to say that blending will be very limited and will be on a transitionary period. There are major questions around the economics of this blending model. If we are in big proportions, many questions that are raised to protect also some consumers that cannot accept blended CH4 plus H2. So yes, today the idea is really to have 100% pure hydrogen, and it is technically feasible. Economically, it's very interesting, as as Anthony mentioned. It is possible technically, and yes, the idea is to use our network to yes, transform it to hydrogen on a 100% basis.
Allow me to be the bad guy, but if we talk about financials and the costs of this network, what can we answer?
The overall cost, I'm not sure it gives a real idea, but maybe the cost of transmission. The European hydrogen backbone shows that we can offer transmission cost between 11 and 21 cents per kilowatt hour per 1,000 kilometers. So it's quite low compared to the price of the hydrogen molecule. And I want to emphasize that in front of this cost, there is, of course, a lot of benefits. Competitiveness, access to very competitive hydrogen. As Marie-Claire said, we have a lot of interesting productions that can come from the south of Europe or the North Sea. It can also give a lot in terms of security of supply, and security of supply have a value for end users, and it's certainly beneficial to have this kind of accessibility to an infrastructure that can offer both transmission but also storage. We need to mention that the European hydrogen backbone can also connect producers and consumers to underground storage and give a lot of storage capacity and a possibility, in fact, to produce hydrogen when electricity prices are low and to deliver hydrogen on a base load basis to industrial customers.
I clearly understand the benefits, but if I rephrase the questions another way, is there a budget in Europe to finance such a backbone? And I guess it's a lot of billions being put on the table.
Today we have different funding possibilities at a European level on different types of projects. We talked in a previous roundtable on the IPSAI possibilities. We have also the project of common interest in Europe. You have also the innovation funds. And also, of course, at national level, there are some possibilities through the recovery plan. We know in France there is also some possibilities for that. But in many countries, and this is also the case for France, today the infrastructure is not considered as a priority. What is considered as a priority?
And it should be?
And it definitely should be. What is considered as a priority is the production, is the demand to develop the consumer, the decarbonization of industry and mobility, for instance. And this is, of course, very much needed because today the hydrogen market is a nascent market. But at the same time, as we are talking about infrastructure with very long lead time, we need to plan as of today what will happen to the infrastructure tomorrow. Otherwise, we will not meet our targets. So really the idea is to decide today, and for that we need the financing and the investment planning to be addressed as of today so that we can meet our targets in 2030.
And I just want to be clear that our idea is not to invest in infrastructure and then wait for customers to connect to our networks and relying a lot on public subsidies. The main idea, in fact, is also to work with hydrogen producers, hydrogen off-takers, and be able, in fact, to promote projects that are economically sound, meaning that the producer and the end users can, in fact, take position and give us some comfort in order to invest in such infrastructure without the need of a lot of public subsidies. And it's certainly a discussion we have with the French government, because the French government always stresses the risk of sunken cost if we invest a lot in infrastructure, and in fact the market is not developing fast enough. Our idea is not to do that. Clearly, is to avoid sunken cost by developing a real dialogue with all the market players in order to invest in the right place, in the right time, and be able to have a maximum of our revenues coming from the private sector and not the public sector.
Okay, maybe let's focus on existing plans for backbones. What are the plans at Terega? I guess you're working on some projects.
Yes, sure. For Terega, as you know, our geographical location, we are directly connected
Close to Spain.
Close to Spain, exactly. So we are present in Nouvelle-Aquitaine and Occitanie, the southwestern part of France. And for that, in the backbone for 2030, we have actually two projects. The first one for the backbone is the idea is to link the eastern part of the Pyrenees with the pipelines going afterwards to GRTgaz network through Marseille and then going further.
So your partners, not rivals.
Of course, we are definitely partners, for sure. And on the western part of our network, there's also the possibility to create a small pipeline in Biryatou in order to link also with the LAC industrial platform. There is a very dynamic basin there, and also afterwards to go to Bordeaux and to also where there are also massive hydrogen need in terms of ports. And in Occitanie, as I was mentioning, the eastern part, there's also the dynamics around Port-la-Nouvelle. So this is our pipelines, I would say, projects that appear today in the backbone. There are also storage projects because we are also a storage operator, and we have worked recently on the IJO project in order to repurpose a storage site to store hydrogen. And so then we are also very much involved in all the projects around LAC and around Occitanie, because as it was mentioned, the idea is really to be in adequacy with what's happening on the ground and in the local ecosystems.
We go from south to east of France and Germany and even Luxembourg with Mosaic projects.
Yes, Mosaic project is GRTGA's most advanced, in fact, project in hydrogen. So it's a project between France, Moselle, the Saar region in Germany and Luxembourg, where we have the opportunity, in fact, to repurpose pipes both on the French and German side and offer 100 kilometers of dedicated hydrogen pipelines to the ecosystem called Grande Région Hydrogène. And it's a project we will decide the investment by the end of this year with the idea to commission the pipe by 2026. So it's clearly an example of both having a local project very close to all the dynamic in this area, but also to, in fact, start this European hydrogen backbone, because in fact Mosaic will be the first hydrogen interconnection between Germany and France. And of course we have other projects that are developing now. Rhine project in the south of Alsace, with also perspective to connect to Germany and Switzerland. We are involved in Dunkerque, in Fos-sur-Mer, with a lot of interesting hydrogen hub with the possibility to develop the networks to, in fact, back the development of this kind of hub. And I want to add that we are lucky at GRTGAS to be also TSO in Germany, because GRTGAS Deutschland is one of the 11 TSO, gas TSO in Germany, and we are also involved, in fact, in the development of the German part of the European hydrogen backbone, with a lot of planification coming from the government, with a lot of interest of the industry toward infrastructure. And of course, we will also develop some project in Germany in the coming months.
Maybe to conclude, Marie-Claire, we can say that backbone is the key, and in ports area, we have already a network existing, and massive production will be distributed through these pipelines.
Yes, it is key again, this European hydrogen backbone. Maybe also I would like to mention the fact that it is very important that we are not pushing a top-down vision, as it was mentioned. We are really working on the ground. We realized also a consultation with GRTGAS, a national consultation at the French level, which took 6 months with many meetings on the ground with many players on the market, and we have identified 6 local basins in France. And this is very important, and the idea is really to be in contact with all those ecosystems that are developing, and to have the infrastructure really meet the market needs. So it is really, I would say, a two-way approach coming from the ground, but also we need some political decision in order to accelerate a little bit this investment decision in infrastructures.
Thank you for being with us today. So Gas for Climate and GRTGAS. We are discussing about the European hydrogen backbone. See you soon on Hyvolution TV.